Daredevil lets us know with 100% certainty that we've won this game. They're playing Cosmo into Jotunheim, so we are free to Galactus into Murder World. So I'll throw that down and snap. Next turn, I get to play a Tuma, and they won't be able to play anything because they're locked out because of Ebony Maw. So, as often happens with a Daredevil snap, my opponent is going to retreat. What is up, everybody? I'm No Lux Given here with your afternoon snap, and today I'm starting a new little mini series on the channel where I take a deep dive into one card in this Galactus Destroyer list, and today we are taking a look at Daredevil. I'm going to talk about it a little bit and then showcase some cool highlights. This deck was actually sort of built around Daredevil. I built it for battle mode for use in the Marvel Snap Clash Invitational, and I found that it was so consistent that I've been playing it on ladder ever since. Daredevil basically combines the two halves of the deck. We've got a Destroyer deck with Armor, Cosmo, and Professor X, and a Galactus list with the Ramp, the Spider-Man, and then there's some overlapping pieces that work in both decks. Electro kind of works in both decks, as does Hobgoblin. But Daredevil allows you to see which of these two game plans you should go for, while also just being a really good card to know which lane to put your Galactus in, or which lane to land Professor X. Though in this game, I'm playing Professor on turn 4 thanks to Electro to lock up Mojo World. And then from there, I'll only have to win one of these other two locations, and Daredevil can still help us with that. Daredevil is great to let you know if the coast is clear for Hobgoblin, which is a really powerful card, though it has the drawback that if your opponent has already filled that location, then you just gave yourself -5 power and have probably lost it. So that can be a little bit tricky, but Daredevil lets you know if there is still room. And we could just play the Hobgoblin here into Bar Sinister. That would probably still win us the game, but we 100% win the game if we just Hobgoblin over onto Limbo, and then my opponent won't have any space to play for the next 2 turns. So I'm gonna go ahead and snap, throw down the Hobgoblin into Limbo, and that will cause my opponent to retreat next turn, where we could basically do anything we wanted on these next few turns. They're going to have 40 power in Bar Sinister, they're going to have 3 power in Limbo, and they're going to retreat. I'll finish off with this one where Daredevil allows me to make nice work of my opponent in this Galactus mirror match. I'm going to start things off by throwing Wolverine into Vormir, get Wolverine growing a little bit. Now it does mean I won't get to play Electro into Vormir, but that's fine because I can blow up Electro later with this Destroyer. So I'm just going to throw Electro into the Tinker's Workshop. That way I've got 2 different options for where to throw my Galactus later on. That's the idea here. And then my opponent is going to play their own Electro into Vormir. So that's where I start to think, okay, I think my opponent might also be playing a Galactus list. We'll hit them with the thumbs up here. So if their plan is to play Galactus, we can get a decent read on them by just dropping Daredevil this turn, and that's going to give me a lot of potential options. We could stop them with Cosmo, we could just throw our own Galactus down in a different location if we want to, or we could potentially do some other things here. We're going to draw Hobgoblin for the turn, which is a nice way to disrupt Galactus, and it's one of the reasons to play Daredevil in a Galactus list, so that way your opponent can't easily Hobgoblin you. However, start to think about another potential plan. What if we just let my opponent Galactus here, and instead of stopping them with Hobgoblin, we just throw a Destroyer in that location, so that way we have a huge lead. Destroyer will blow up the Wolverine, growing that a little bit, and then Galactus will blow up the Wolverine again, so we'll have a pretty big power lead in the one single location. And from there, Cosmo and Armor in some combination should allow us to lock up the win and allow us to play around any tricky things that my opponent might try to do. So that's the plan I'm going to go for with all of the information that I have. Wolverine's going to flip back into the Tinkerer Workshop and then back again into Vormir after Galactus destroys those other 2 locations. So we are now up to 23 power, up by more than 20 in the one location. So that's going to be a pretty tough deficit for my opponent to overcome. And I think Cosmo plus Spider-Man will probably win it in most scenarios, though I do realize that Hobgoblin plus armor is slightly more power. That contributes 11 power. I could honestly see going either way with this. There are some weird strategies that people play with Galactus where they use like Valkyrie and stuff like that, so maybe the other play was safer, but I go for this one for the most possible, biggest point differential, and we're going to see Armor and Hobgoblin easily defeat my opponent's Death plus Shang-Chi. So there you go, just a few quick games highlighting the strengths of Daredevil. It's really good with the expensive cards in this deck, the 5 and 6 costers, though Spider-Man is basically like Professor X on the penultimate turn of the game and can do a pretty similar job there. There's also a really cool game with Daredevil that we're going to look at in the Wave highlight video that is a really fun puzzle, but I'm going to highlight all of these cards individually in their own separate videos, so let me know what you thought about this style of content, but that is going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm No Lex Given. Peace.